No, I'm just a bit scared, that's all.
How long have you known her then?
Actually, Jimmy knows me old man better than he knows me. They used to go around the States together.
Not Bangladesh, something like that. You know, I guess Harrison did something like, you know, raise more than Australia did anyway.
Yes, but then again, what does somebody who... I don't know, it's a nasty thing to say. Well, it sounds nasty, but, you know, I mean, he's from Liverpool, and what can he really do in Bangladesh? You know, there's a lot of poverty in Liverpool as well.
You don't think he gives a damn about Liverpool, yeah?
Well, you know, you can't say he doesn't give a damn, but I think that if one wants to help anything, you know, you start in your own backyard. Work there where you have some idea of the problems. You know.
Does Zeppelin do any charity concerts like that at all?
No. Charity concerts.
Well, I guess
Which charity do you do it for? Or do you just pick one out of a list? How does the money get used? You know, charity organisations can sometimes be a little strange in how they think they can solve the problem or help solve the problem. And sometimes you may not agree with the way, you know, they may not know the real nature of the problem. And you can just give them a whole load of money and they'll just go and waste it.
Yeah, you know. Sure.
It's very hard to know what to do, really. I think it's easiest just to entertain people.
Has Zeppelin made any films at all? You know, are you involved in anything outside of the music?
No, not as yet. Doubtless we shall get round to it one day. It just needs, again, you know, it can't just be done like a quick film, leafing about on the stage or anything like that. You know, if you're going to do a film or going to do a television show or anything like that, it has to be done properly with a lot of thought, a lot of time. We don't really have the time, you know.
Yeah.
Our touring takes up a lot. Albums. You know, being musicians, music takes up most of our time. You know, if we were filmmakers, then we could make films.
Robert, what happened in Perth with the police bursting in on you?
Oh, goodness knows. I think they were trying to get a bit of overtime in. I really don't know. I suppose it's the sign of the times, you know. Well, they did very well with the kids. They did very well with 99% of the people. But when you've got two people phoning the mayor, it's time to put a stop to it. I think Abraham Lincoln said that.
Or something anyway. The governor sort of was so freaked out by these, you know, instigating an inquiry into why Led Zeppelin were raided.
Well, I really can't understand. I wasn't woken up. If I had been woken up, they'd have had me for assault and battery. But I really don't know. I think it's just another one of those things that mankind, you know, is coming to. I think we can all say goodbye to good old Mother Earth.
Tell me, why did Led Zeppelin come down to Australia anyway?
Well, we wanted to go to Bombay, you see, and somebody got to pay the fare.
What did you want to do in Bombay? It's probably a more interesting subject than Australia.
Yeah, but I'd rather not say anything. No, Bombay's a good place. Bombay and Bangkok, and we were going to go to Singapore, but we heard that...
Was it for concerts you were just looking?
If you went out of the duty-free area, you'd...
That's right, you'd have to have your hair cut right off. You can't get into Singapore, you know, with hair below your ears now.
Right, so that was the end of that. But we wanted to go to Bali too, but they're sweeping them out of there as well, aren't they? Yeah. Apparently there's somebody coming along with a great big road sweeper, and everything that's got hair past its ears, everything that's got hair past the lobes of its ears has been swept into the sea. Good place to be after a war.
Did you go to Bangkok?
Yeah, I've been there before.
Why did you start the tour in Europe? Was it a kind of lead-in to the American tour?
I think it was the easiest way to become accustomed once again to crowds of people, you know. Last night was the first time that I'd stepped in front of 7,000, 8,000 people and said, good evening, you know. And I'd rather have done it nearer home than go over there and do it, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Because the last time, well, I remember a gig that you did about 3-4 years ago at the Marquee, which I enjoyed very much. I mean, I know the sound wasn't that good that night, but the atmosphere was fantastic. And the venue was very small. Mm-hmm. And we've read stories over the last, couple of weeks of the riots to get tickets now for Led Zeppelin concerts. And obviously, with the demand, you're having to play enormous auditoriums. I mean, would you prefer really in many ways to go back to playing smaller gigs, or do you really go off on the bigger ones?
I think it's irrelevant providing that you can create and establish and maintain an atmosphere, you know, whether it be in a small place or a large place. And we found with America that it can be, we pulled it off with 57,000 people, you know, and that was quite a thing. I mean, it could have been 57,000 people, Led Zeppelin, and no atmosphere, you know, but it seems to work. It seems to be okay. So it doesn't matter. We tried returning to the small gigs disastrously once in England when everybody was going, oh, they big time, you know, and it was really just about the same.
Yeah. Because it's been quite a long time, Robert, since the last album. Why has it been so long?
We've been involved in a lot of things. We've been coming to a lot of conclusions and decisions and starting the record company off, you know. We got mixed up in quite a gargantuous film, you know, so all these things lead up to, you know, time is swallowed by every move, you know.
Yeah. The film, because I've heard a lot about the film, that's the American tour film, presumably. Are we going to be able to see that fairly soon?
Well, fairly soon. It's like, fairly soon is I don't know how long fairly soon is in most people's mind's eyes, but I shouldn't think it'll be too long now. It's virtually finished, you know. I think I said that about 6 months ago, but this time it is virtually finished.
What actually is it? Is it gigs?
It's one gig at Madison Square Garden, interspersed by what we would consider to be representations of how we'd like ourselves to be seen or off stage, you know, one way or another. And there's a lot of sort of waffle that goes on around a gig included in it too. It's quite realistic for New York.
Yeah.
If anything is realistic in New York.
Have you, between you, ever thought of doing individual albums? I mean, will Swan Song give you the opportunity of doing that?
Well, no doubt it would if we felt that it would benefit either of us, any of us individually. But I don't think that I could possibly do it without playing with the other guys, you know. It's part of my charisma is, you know, is reliant on the other three, you know, and the same with everybody else, you know. We really get off on playing together, you know? And that's the whole secret of, I couldn't really go away and play with anybody else, because if I wanted to play, who else would I need for a drummer but Bonzo, you know? And the same with Jimmy and Jonesy. I don't think it wouldn't be right.
Just finally, Robert, at the end of the American tour, Led Zeppelin's long-term plans, are you going to do England after that?
Well, I think it's about time that we did, you know. What we'd like to do, I think, is make it some kind of event, like when we did the Empire Pool. We did that for, I think we were the first band to take that place and do something not extraordinary, but a little bit of an event, you know, performing pigs with ruffs around the neck. They didn't do too well, actually, but they were there, you know, trampoline acts and just an atmosphere of an occasion, you know. And if we can find, which I think possibly we can in early summer, find a suitable place to do something as entertaining on a large scale as that, you know, then I think we will. We tried Ali Pali, you know, about 2 years ago on a Christmas, and it wasn't disastrous. It sounded brilliant on stage, but the place just wasn't built for Zeppelin, you know. It was too cold, and the sound was, you know, you might as well have been playing in an empty hall for the sound that you got, you know. So really, we've got to find the right place, and then go to town on it in true style.
Robert Plant, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.
When Led Zeppelin ended, did you know what you were going to do? I mean, did you have a plan?
Not really, no. My only plan, well, initially I didn't want to do anything at all. But I got a little 4-track tape machine at home, and we started knocking out a lot of rockabilly stuff and Dion stuff.
That's what we want to hear.
Yes, it was great.
Let's have a tape of that.
Yeah, it's great stuff, actually. And the musicians that I was working with were really quite competent. And a lot of them had been in bands and travelled abroad, been all around the world, and had chosen, well, to go into the slow lane rather than the fast lane. So there was a totally different adrenaline count, you know, which meant that we could spend 2 nights doing Ruby Baby or something like that and making it sound great. So we said, well, the best thing we could do perhaps is have a go of doing it on the road. And
just sort of escalated from there into something quite good. But never too serious.
Yeah.
You know, that probably the most serious person was me, because I was having to contend with all the flashbacks of, you know, state troopers and cavalcades of motorbikes, you know, guarding me and all that sort of thing. When you come up to JB's, you just get a lift.
Standing in the bar.
Yeah.
After doing such like monster gigs with like millions of and huge security, and that, was it a relief to do those little ones?
It was a test to begin with. I was petrified. I mean, the first time the Honey Drip was actually worked together was just over, well, about 18 months ago, locally. And I probably had more pangs of nervousness about that than I did about Madison Square Garden or any of those monster, silly sketches, you know. Because it was, the truth was going to be seen or heard. There was no camouflage. You were within 3 foot of the first person who wanted to shout for Stairway to Heaven, you know.
The other thing is that you, as far as I know, always lived around here and stayed here, whereas a lot of people in your position would either live in Los Angeles or London or somewhere like that.
Well, they all made more money than me. Pooh. And no, I don't think it's the right thing to do. I've seen a lot of my pals become virtually foreigners within their own country by finding that it was a good idea to move. A lot of people who play in London or who lived in London initially when groups started couldn't wait to get out of there, you know. I mean, people say, well, who wants to live in Balham or whatever, Gateway to the South, you know?
That's right.
So they go to Sussex or, I don't know, Essex or somewhere like that, and they ostracise themselves so that they're the people in the big house. And so their social existence is only tempered around music. And that's the most incestuous situation that you could wish for, really. I mean, it's negative. It's better to do your music, do what you've got to do, have a total musical time or a side of your character that applies to all that, and then come back and just be where you've always been.
What wise words? Because, I mean, there's a lot of people who, you must know a lot of people who now live in Los Angeles, say, and it seems like it's almost a graveyard for people.
Well, last time I was there, and I haven't been there now for years and years and years. I haven't got the stamina anymore. About 6 years ago, I used to play football with Rod Stewart, which is no big deal, but the thing is, we used to go back to his house afterwards and watch tapes of English soccer matches and then go to an English pub after that. And the whole thing was like leaning back here all the time, but still being there. And it was bonkers, really. I mean, you can come up to this club here and you immediately, everything falls into perspective because you can't, the flash element, the kind of wah that you've been used to has to disappear immediately.
The thing that I dare say, will you take this band out on the road, or will you take a band out on the road again for a big tour?
Well, the immediate answer is yes. I think what I'd like to do is, this next album is crucial. I mean, it's really weird for a bloke of my age to say that anything's crucial, I suppose, when I've done so much, but that's the whole thing about me. The next step is very important. Having been with Zeppelin for years and years, the first album that I've done away from that stable was pretty good. And the next one's I've got to take everything that I know and everything that these guys I'm playing with know.
Okay, this Thursday sees the British premiere of the Led Zeppelin film, The Song Remains the Same. Now, we've already seen a section from it on the programme, and there's a longer sequence to come in a few minutes' time. I was due to talk with Robert Plant and Peter Grant about the film, but at the time our filming was scheduled, like so many people recently, I'd succumbed to the persistent attacks of a 424 flu virus going down 3-0 at home.
Speak up.
What do you say?
Pardon?
Come in, Bob. Hello? Hello?
I was just saying, okay, I was sorry I was ill and couldn't be there with you. So, wearing the number 12 shirt for Whistle Test was Mike Appleton, as he meets up with Robert Plant and Led Zeppelin's manager Peter Grant, somewhere on the River Thames.
Well, at last it's happening. The Led Zeppelin film is going to appear before our very eyes. The rumours seem to have been flying around for years. How long, in fact, is it since you started making it?
I think the evening in question was in July 1973.
So that's what? 3 years ago?
Yeah, just gone.
That's quite a long time. What was the hold-up? What caused the delay in between? I know it's a complex film, there's a lot in it, but it's quite a long time, 3 years.
There wasn't any hold-up in the concert part of it, and there hasn't been any hold-up. I mean, the time between 73, or the end of July 73, when it was filmed at Madison Square Garden, the concert part. The rest has been taken up by doing all the fantasy and offstage parts. That's where it is.
In effect, it was finished just to this side of last Christmas. But to get up to that point, if you really want to look at the thing in it's the best light, then like an album, as the time it took with Physical Graffiti, you can't really spend, countless hours going through reel upon reel of tape, our film rather. So we just approached it when we were, just kept the freshness there.
It was the same attitude as I would take with an album, to get it as near perfect as possible. That's why.
I mean, although it was done 3 years ago and obviously didn't have anything from Physical Graffiti and or from Presence, I didn't feel that I was looking at an old concert. I mean, it looked like a contemporary concert to me. Do you tend to use much of Physical Graffiti and Presence now? Or will you with Presence, and did you with Physical Graffiti?
Yes, we haven't had an opportunity with Presence yet. There are a couple of things that I think that we'll work on, but with Graffiti, if you came to Earl's Court, or if any of the 90-odd thousand folk who did, would know that we included a fair portion of Physical Graffiti, But I think the vibe has changed just slightly, but the excitement is still maintained.
I've been trying to think of a word to describe the film for somebody who hasn't seen it. Rock fantasy isn't really an adequate word. I don't like it very much, and I'm sure you don't. How would you actually describe the film to somebody who knows nothing about it but knows about it?
It isn't rock fantasy. I think the main thing was to get over the fact that it just wasn't a film of a concert. I mean, there's been lots of well, not lots, but there's been quite a few films that have just been concerts on the stage, and we wanted to get beyond that.
Yeah, if we're going to be self-indulgent, we might as well try and expand our indulgence a little bit,
I mean, the self-indulgence being the fantasy sections. Were you each individually in charge of your own sequence of fantasy? You were totally in charge?
It had to be total control, because really you worked out, or you planned out how you would like, in my own case, how I really saw what I was doing on another level altogether. The journey, the fact that there are pitfalls and there are trials, tribulations, and elations, and the end should never ever be in sight.
But they were entirely their own individual ideas. For instance, with Robert, like when Robert did his stuff in Wales, the other members of the group were not there, and
refused to pay for it at all.
And we have plans for that later, actually. Wait till he sees his next royalty statement. Oh, I forgot, it doesn't get me. Sorry.
How did you work with the director? Presumably you had a lot of ideas. Obviously you did in your fantasy sequences. Presumably you did for the stuff on stage. How did you actually work with him? How much were you in charge and how much was he in charge? Or was it a cooperative?
They were totally in charge. The artistic thing of how Robert wanted, or Jimmy, or Paul Jones, or John Bonham wanted to see. They had a picture in their mind of what they wanted to see. That was a matter of having the director shoot what was in their mind, Him being a craftsman, technician, mechanic, whatever you'd like to say.
And then it was up to... Well, so long as he did that, then it was up to us afterwards to sort of get together and correlate with him and say, right, now this should be illuminated. Now this is where you've got to really pull, this is where you've got to do your stuff, because we know exactly what part, having lived with it forever and conceived it, we know exactly what parts need highlighting and he was, in a way, working somewhat in the dark, although he could see that there was a picture and there was substance there, I mean, we knew what parts had to be highlighted. And so we had to work constantly.
Did you script it for him, or did you do it by word of mouth? I mean, did you sort of discuss it and say, well, we'll do this?
No, it all started in the Sheraton Hotel in Boston. And everybody's sitting around talking about a film which we talked about for some time. The group had talked about it. And somebody said, why don't we make a film, Gene? So I said, yeah, that's not an idea. Picked the phone up, called London, and
Rented the Sharks?
yes, and over they came. It was just like that, you know. It was straight in at the deep end, really. But it worked.
I think it
I
worked
think.
very well. I liked the film very much. The one section that I had a slight reservation about was the theft from the hotel sequence, which somehow seemed to lift it out of a rock concert and a fantasy combination into a sort of documentary. But I suppose in a way, maybe the rock concert was a documentary, and that it happened all on the one day.
Well, the robbery scene could have been a lot heavier, but it could have been a lot heavier, yeah. Could have been another $1 in the safe.
Right, yeah. Could have been a lot less robbed.
No, the thing is that the robbery did happen at the time of the concert. It was a part of that time, that capture, whatever you like to call it, and that's why we just folded it in gently. It's not very blatant. I mean, did you find it blatant?
Well, you see, I did actually find it rather blatant, but not only did I find it slightly away from the feeling of the rest of the film, but it was also in black and white, which accentuated its difference.
Yes, but it was newsreel. It was actual
Yeah, it
TV
was,
newsreel.
but somehow, I don't know, it just seemed to me like a wart.
I tell you what, if you walk off stage and find out that $203,000 have gone up the spout,
If I walk up on stage and have that, I should just be happy.
it'd be pretty relevant. But that was it. It was a day in July, really. We just, in fact, that we tried to find a title that would signify the fact that it was
That's
just
right,
that, wasn't it? You know?
yeah.
A day in July might have been a good title. A bit late in the day to change it.
Robert, why did you make the film in the first place?
Well, I wouldn't like to think that vanity crept in, but it's rather frustrating spending now it's a total of about 8.5 years of playing on stage, and I think the closest we've ever got of seeing ourselves is having a sly peep at the video screen at Earl's Court, you know. So initially, if it ran to no more than just, you know, turning ourselves on, or at least having a look to see what people came for, you know, that was the initial, you know, idea. And from there on, we just wanted to capture one moment in time, you know. I mean, it was. Now it's got to the point it was a while back. You know, the time may come again when we reach a point that we say, right, you know, let's have a go at this one. Let's see how this looks, you know.
It's ironical to me as a television producer that it's taken an extract from a commercial cinema film to bring Led Zeppelin back in performance state, back onto the small screen. Well, you obviously have persevered with a positive line of not appearing on television anywhere in the world, I believe. Why have you particularly done that?
Because the only way we could line you up to get any decent time on Old Grey wasn't it?
But really, I mean, do you feel that television is too limited?
Yes.
In what area?
Well, particularly in sound. With respect, I don't think they have the facilities to record the sound. And in some way, you just cannot capture the magic of Zeppelin. Magic is a much bandied word, I know, but you just can't. That's why I've always been against doing it.
I must say, television loudspeakers do have certain limitations.
Yeah. To me, to put it in words, I don't know, but I just don't see it working. It doesn't work for Led Zeppelin.
Well, obviously, the major problem for a band is sound, of course it is.
Yeah. But I can give you an example. In Earl's Court, if any people saw Earl's Court, the people that went to Earl's Court was 90-odd thousand.
Yeah.
You know, now then, I think it worked really well myself, the big screen at the back. It looked super. You know, people got really close-up things. Now I have that whole thing on cassette. And I put it on a 25-inch screen at home. Nothing. Doesn't work.
What have you done about the cinemas you're going into? Have you done anything special about the sound there?
You be very careful on the cinemas.
I think there are certain cinemas that can accommodate the 4-track stereo that the film is presented in initially, and I should imagine that other cinemas in strategic points can be equipped with the right equipment, so
yes.
we can really get, we can do exactly what we started out doing, you know.
Yeah.
Well, taking the distributors fall in love with and push it up and down the country all over the place, will this affect live gigs and touring?
No.
No way.
I mean, you would currently tour at the same time as the film is showing?
Well, not immediately it comes out.
No, but I mean, if it was still showing around the country, that wouldn't influence
I mean,
you?
we find John Paul Jones in time, maybe.
Well, thanks very much for coming along and chatting to us. Maybe
great.
in 5 years' time we'll see it brought up in a package and shown on BBC as a television special.
Actually, I didn't let them have the television rights.
Curses! Foiled again. Thanks very much indeed, Robert.
All right, great. Great.
Get well soon, Bob.
Yes.
He's lost his voice.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sitting beside a guy who is possibly the best rock and roll drummer on earth. Would you agree with that? I'm sure you would agree with that, John.
Not at all.
No, he doesn't agree with that at all. And I'm going to ask him a most important question here. John, we've been watching that bit film there, and you do some really it must have taken you years to learn to play like that, did it?
Not really.
The weather's turned out nice again, John, eh?
So-so.
Yeah. Now, John drives some pretty exotic cars and motorbikes and plays a fair game of snooker, as you've no doubt seen from that clip of film. How long did it take you to learn to do that, John?
It doesn't surprise me at all, no, because those particular, certainly from even back to the Yardbirds.
Scary creative days.
Yeah, creative, totally experimental in their day. And of course this was pushing the horizons further and further on. For, you know, all the bands that are around that time. And of course now there's such a catalogue of music for young musicians to look at, take from, and being stimulated by. It doesn't surprise me at all.
I said to Jimmy, you know, what are you going to do? Are you going to go back to sessions, or what do you want to do? Are you going to carry the Yardbirds off, or no? What are you going to do? You know? And he said, no. He said, I'd like to get a band together. I've got some ideas for a band. And I said, okay. And how would you go? What would you do? I remember saying to him, what about a producer? And he said, well, I'd like to produce the first record myself. And if it doesn't work out, if I don't cut it, we'll think about getting another one. But let's get a band together. And that's what we said about getting them.
I've been dazed and confused, so long as not true. When I was 19 and I teamed up with Jimmy, I knew nothing about anything, and my whatever talent I got was really rough.
And Jimmy said, well, why don't you come down to my house and bring all your record collection down? And he was a bit apprehensive about joining maybe the new Yardbirds sort of thing. And we recorded the first album for £1,800, including the cover. We made that.
So this first record's made. At this point, you've come up with the name Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
Or somebody has.
Well, that came about from the B-side of High Ho Silver Lining. There's an instrumental on it called Beck's Bolero, which was Jeff Beck, Jimmy Page, Keith Moon, John Paul Jones, Nicky Hopkins, and somebody else. And they did it as a fun jam thing in '66. And Mooney had said, Keith Moon said, oh, this will probably go down like a Led Zeppelin, that whole thing, the crashing thing. And so Jimmy and I thought, well, it's not a bad name. I said, it's not a bad name for the band. And the only thing I didn't like about it, it looked like L-E-A-D was like lead you up the garden path, you know, like, I didn't like the A, and that time, you know, light and heavy were, and I happened to be in the office one day, and I wrote down a big piece of board, L-E-D, Zeppelin, and I rang Jimmy up and I said, it looks much better, it sounds much better, and he said, okay, Pete, let's go for that.
You very much made America your sort of focal point for that.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. You see, I'd done that tour with Yardbirds and seen what was loosely called the underground scene there. Great places, you see. They were opinion-making places. So I'd done those with the Yardbirds, so I was lucky in the fact that I'd had the insight to that.
The English youth could not be quite as expressive because the whole thing about North America is much more gung-ho. So it would be more acceptable for campus students to be
aware and voicing their problems and voicing the issues of the times. In England, music, if you like, was much more Tin Pan Alley. For me, at the age of 19, just 20, to get off the plane on the west coast of America and to be engulfed by this feeling of, okay, we've got a job to do here, and you're a musician and you're a singer and you've got to join in and help. It was quite remarkable. I mean, it's like a little cameo now to look back.
I'm over by the mixer board and I look down and there's a guy with a sort of thing with dials on it and an aerial in front of the speakers. So I said to one of them, fucking get him out, sort of thing, you know. And nobody does. There is nobody actually. So I went down and challenged the guy and he wouldn't answer me. So I got hold of him and the piece of equipment, took him backstage and threw the piece of equipment down the stairs, which he was about to follow. And the whole assistant manager came up and all that, and he turned out he was the environmental health man, and he was a meter, a decibel reader and all that. And the promoter said, you're going to get arrested. I said, not me. And when we finished it, we were into the car and we went straight to Starship, and got on to Starship and flew to Seattle.
No band is more famous for its groupie scene than those godlike monsters of rock, Led Zeppelin.
I think Zeppelin started the trend of girls just doing anything to be with these people, because they were bored. These bands would get very bored on the road. They toured a lot in the early days. They found it, you know, titillating, and it amused them that these girls would do anything. So they would like push it as far as they see what these girls would actually do.
It was an extremely volatile, intense, traveling rock and roll circus, you know, that was the epitome of kind of 70s rock and roll success and glamour and excess, and that's just what Led Zeppelin were.
Outrageous stories followed the band like, well, a pack of sharks. That dangerous creature appropriately appears in the most notorious groupie story of all, the Led Zeppelin shark incident.
That was the wildest thing I've ever been involved in or saw in my life. It was pretty wild.
I don't know whether it really happened. I mean, I don't recall that incident.
I don't even know if you can tell all the details on VH1.
I remember hearing about it from a Frank Zappa song, which went something like, Mood Shark.
It was 1969 at Seattle's Edgewater Hotel, a favorite stopover for rock bands playing in the area.
I found this woman who was very eager to do whatever, you know. And in this hotel, you can go buy fishing poles, and you could fish out the windows. It's right on the water.
Basically, what I remember is that Bonzo and I were fishing out the window of the hotel. We heard noise from another room, and of course we didn't want to miss out on anything. And we went over there, and there was some girl lying on the floor.
So when they come in, they had this mud shark in their hand.
It was either the shark or the snapper.
And they had this chick. And the chick was like up for anything, you know. So before we knew anything, the chick was sitting on the chair, and they were like, I don't know who it was, I can't remember. They were like hitting her on the back with the mud shark.
Hey lady, you got the love I need.
This chick had everything done to her with the fish, with ketchup, with bottles, with butter, with everything that I've ever seen done in my life.
I mean, it definitely happened. There was a shark and there was a girl.
She liked it. I was like, you know, I was just shocked. I think I was in shock for the whole thing, really.
The Zeppelin band members always played coy about the incident.
So you want to know whether I ever did any of these weird and wonderful things? Well, I might have done, but I can't remember it.
Whether it was true or not, the shark incident stayed with Led Zeppelin as groupies spread rumors of the band actually feeding a girl to a bunch of sharks. It was a new low in groupie folklore. What everyone does agree on is that Jimmy Page wasn't involved. He had his own way of treating groupies, part dark prince, part scoundrel. He kept his favorite, Laurie Maddox, under lock and key.
I started modeling for a magazine called Star Magazine, which is sort of a cult magazine now, which was a early 70s pre-groupie teen magazine that made 13-year-olds look like they were 40 in all Vogue clothes and with musicians and rock stars, and sort of highlighted these girls as being groupies, but they really weren't. They were just models.
Laurie was a fixture on the Sunset Strip scene. Jimmy first spotted Laurie at a poolside party at LA's Hyatt House, otherwise known as the Riot House. He knew then he had to have her.
What happened was I was kidnapped, literally, and he told me he was going to be with me, and I said, no, he wasn't, and he said, yes, I am. And then we all ended up at the Rainbow, and we were at the Rainbow, and Richard Cole says to me, get in the bloody car, and if you move, I'll have your head.
I'm sure if he said I want her, I would have gone and asked her to get in the car or whatever, or carried her out. I don't think we ever viewed her as 14 years old. I mean, none of those girls look 14.
And next thing you know, we're at the hotel. I'm walking down the hall. Next thing you know, I'm pulled into this door, and there I was basically kidnapped, and I turn around and look, and there's Jimmy sitting in the corner of the room with a hat and a cane, saying, I told you I'm going to have you.
Jimmy and Laurie stayed together for several years in an intensely private relationship.
He always left me with the security locked in the room. I wasn't really allowed to go very many places with him.
Many have wondered what Page was doing keeping a teenage lover in a Los Angeles hotel room, but according to Laurie, love conquered all.
It was worth every minute. Truly. He was a beautiful person, and he touched my life deeply.
Robert, the last time you're on this program, you're a vaguely shadowy figure in the back of a video for a group called the Honey Drippers. What was that all about?
That's what you might call a hobby of mine.
And it was a sort of rock and roll revival thing, wasn't it? Is that fair to say?
It's an extension of what I want to do on a wet Sunday afternoon, apart from listen to... where's Don Henley? Should we knock him? No. It's something to do in amongst writing songs and creating new albums, just to team up with old mates.
That was actually on the video vote, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't win?
No, but the next one will.
You didn't ring it. Do you ring up and vote for your own videos when they're on this thing? That's one thing I've always
I didn't have a 10p.
I see. But that was actually a big hit in America, wasn't it, that record?
Rockin' at Midnight was a top 30 single, yeah.
So you're now moving on to another Robert Plant record.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think you've got to the point now where we don't need to refer to you as Robert Plant, formerly the lead singer of Led Zeppelin?
Well, I should think there's a generation of people coming along now who probably haven't even heard of Led Zeppelin unless they look in W.H.C. Smith's and have a look at all those sort of gargantuan books and the weird covers. I don't think there's any need to refer to it anymore.
What do you think when you look back and see yourself with sort of hair down your back and doing a whole lot of love and all that sort of thing?
I think the hair was great.
You don't get even remotely embarrassed at some of the things you did?
Well, what can I tell you? It's live TV. Of course I don't. It was great.
Tell us about this new record. Who produced it?
Myself, Benji Lefebvre, and a guy called Tim Palmer, who's worked a lot with... It's name that group from Liverpool with...
The Beatles?
No, the next most famous group.
Dead or Alive?
There we are.
I see. So, I mean, it's not... Is it a terribly contemporary record with those synthesizers all over it? And
there are guitar synthesizers all over it. It's one of those sort of records where you don't know whether the Robbie's playing, you know, Farfisa or, you know, PPG or the new Roland guitar synth, 707.
Do you think things are swinging back to guitar groups and rock and roll?
Well, did you hear a Gibson then on that TV?
Well, I wouldn't know a Gibson if it hit me over the head. But,
where's he gotten? That solo was great, wasn't it?
You think there is a fashion coming back?
I think that crashing guitar never died.
And Robert Plant, you might be able to take advantage of it, you think, in this country?
Possibly.
Okay.
I hope so.
Start over here, and then we come around like that.
There you go.
And then we start over here.
Jimmy. Good leg.
Still having trouble with your camera, mate?
Cool.
Jimmy.
Good one, Sam. Good one, Sam.
Right, thanks, Rob.
Right here, Robert.
Get rid of that thing in the back.
Get rid of that rabbit.
Mr. Page, please.
Get out of the way.
Get rid of the railing.
And Jimmy.
Yes.
Thank you, Sam.
Great. Excellent.
Oh, you can be stopped in the morning.
Okay, that's about
Yeah,
it.
you can be stopped in the morning, but he's not. He's
very...
Something else. Look, there's all people here. They're all witnessing the fact that... Do it for
What happens next? You just keep wandering around everywhere we go.
At some point,
Where's
time,
Rex
guys are
King?
going to need to sit down because there's no photos to be taken during the actual question period. So, Robert?
Rex King, he knows... Yes.
What about another hand for Jimmy Page and Robert Campbell?
We don't really need this, do we? I was touring in America throughout most of last year, and I got approached by MTV to do that thing. And I thought it was a bit inappropriate because obviously I would not only do solo stuff, but I'd be doing Led Zeppelin stuff. And it seemed to be, although I've got a bit of a problem with my ego, it would be a bit ridiculous to try and take all the glory for all those songs from 1968 to 1980. So I said yes. No. So Jimmy and I started talking about if we did do something together, how we would go about, you know, developing a program that would try and personify what we did in the past, but at the same time contemporize it enough so that it wasn't too jaundiced and also wasn't too obvious. I mean, there are so many, you know, there's only so many ways to skin a rabbit. And the one way would be to go on and be the kind of archetypal aging rock icons, or the other way would be to give it a lot of some thought, which is something that we'd never done in the past. Every time we'd been approached to do anything together, we'd done it in the shortest amount of time without a great deal of thought. And I think nervousness and adrenaline and stuff played a part in making it less of an event and more of a fiasco. So by settling down and discussing how we would do it and how we would elaborate on the past and how we would present a present and a future, we actually did the first practical and logical thing that we'd done for many years together. It was interesting.
And that was always your policy from...
Well, we gave you some old memories. We want to give you some new ones.
Well, I mean, to renew it, I mean, take the material that was from the first Zeppelin era, if you like, and to make it new and to contemporize the music. And that's always been a policy. Well, yeah, not so much contemporize, it's just, you know, the whole world has opened up in every respect since we first wrote Friends and Kashmir and stuff. When we did write those songs, we'd already recorded in India in 1971, 72, with the Bombay, part of a Bombay Symphony Orchestra, and we'd recorded Friends and Four Sticks way back then, but just for an afternoon to see what it would sound like. Certainly not with a career view. But as time's gone on and the whole idea of fusing music from all different parts of the world is now more feasible, then it's not so much how we can accept doing it, but how the people that you approach from Morocco or from Egypt, they're much more open to the whole deal now. And so the doors are open to work in more or less any situation. The only problem is that a lot of the work that goes on, I go to Morocco a lot, and the Ganawa, who we worked with, you can buy cassettes of the Ganawa playing jazz fusion. And I mean, man, that's so bad. I mean, it's just terrible that a lot of the kind of combinations of people from the desert or from the mountains in the less populated parts of the world, they end up playing with Stanley Clarke type of situations, which I don't understand why world music often gets tagged with this fusion thing, because it's such a kind of emasculating process. And anyway, how do you get a Tuareg Arab to take his snakeskin boots off and become a jazzer? So the thing is, it's much more appropriate now and much easier. The doors are open to work more or less with anybody, anytime. Just keep away from jazz.
Next question.
Well, shut up then.
You're not doing a bad job, really.
Nice guy, though.
Is there a light by any chance?
Jim, I've got some matches here.
Oh,
Thank you.
Next question. Who's next?
Pass the acid.
Yes. Sorry. George, first of all, trailer.
Yeah, Trevor Jackson from...
Nice mic.
Trevor Jackson from Radio Triple. Same place as him. I won't hog the conference as he did. Just how much...
Is there anybody not from this radio station? Yeah. Do you want to hang on a bit?
How much hesitation...
I told you they were mouthy down here. Look, my mic's packed up. Nice deal, this.
You can have mine.
You must be the bloke who does the Stones PA as well. No, you're going to do some talking too.
Yeah, I know, but I was just lending a hand if the mic had fallen down.
How much hesitation was there when you first got into the studio? I mean, obviously there was a little bit of apprehension there, thinking, well, look, it's been a while since we've done this, and...
No. You're choreographing this whole thing. I went to the toilet. Actually, no, Jim went to the toilet for ages. Do you remember you...
Did I?
Yeah.
I'm surprised you noticed, Robert.
Well, I'd had 3 shaves by the time he came back. And while I was away, we started work.
Okay, next question.
All right, over here.
Hang on, there's a bloke here.
Over here, guys.
Oh, there.
I don't know how you stole Paul Thompson from The Cure.
Oh, he gave up. He's married... Well, I'm not going to say it. He just couldn't drink enough absinthe, and he just didn't have the same capacity for excess during the concert that Robert did. And basically, it's a rigmarole. He found out that although the Cure at one point were really, really making new ground and contributing to good changes inside this cocoon, he found in the end that the Cure had started to look to everybody else to make sure that they weren't getting left behind, and that's not really what he wanted to do. So he quit.
And how did you guys find him?
Well, he lives in the middle of a stone circle in Cornwall.
Cool.
Next.
You didn't know that? Yeah. I thought everybody knew that.
Here we go.
What's the thing you hate most reading about yourselves or hearing about yourselves in the media?
What do we hate most?
Yeah.
Don't think we do, we? No, I don't think there's anything we hate.
Huh?
Huh?
It's all great?
Not great. It's bearable.
In any particular country? Because media is different all the way everywhere.
Right, worldwide, make a selection.
Well, I don't know what you're thinking about, so I can't really answer the question. What sort of
People
stuff
get my age wrong.
Yeah.
Some people say...
Yeah, actually, there was a review in England where Robert was his age and I was 60, which I thought was rather funny. You know, that's good. That's good.
And somebody said I once went out with Jermaine Greer. There's lots of things, but it doesn't matter. It's only a game.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
What about pressure from the media to calling yourselves Led Zeppelin?
Are you the pressure? Well, shut up then. Doesn't matter, does it really?
No.
I'm Rumpelstiltskin.
Was the exclusion of John Paul Jones an obvious sort of...
Shut up.
An obvious.
Yeah.
No,
Are you obvious? Because I like the way you hold the mic. You do this Tony Bennett thing.
Yeah.
Hang on, I gotta...
Haven't you heard my album?
If it got as much play as my last one, probably no.
Deb, take that microphone off this man.
No, I just wanted to basically clarify the fact that just you two working together would try and stop people from labelling it a Led Zeppelin reunion.
Do you know Lazy River?
No.
Not believe. Oh, it don't matter. It's just that Jonesy was busy and we're busy. And
when we started working, we came up with we were writing a lot of, well, right from day one or day two, we had 4 things written. Then we started working with Charlie and Michael, the rhythm section, and we've got like 9 numbers that you haven't heard yet. We were, you know, moving along at such a rapid pace, and the momentum of it grew to the point where...
You're not responsible for, you know, I mean, you don't... If you want to go and have a romance, on a Friday or a Saturday, you don't have to go out with your wife or your ex-wife. You know, you don't have to be completely chained to the kind of what was the modus operandi all those years before. You know, I don't think it's important. I just think that if there's anything left of some kind of existentialist great moment in time in this completely contrived environment, then it ought to be that you do what you want to do when you want to do it as long as you like, and then fuck off. You know, and just leave it. Forget it. If it doesn't feel good one morning, you don't have to bring everybody back in and all get on the same gear, you know. Jonesy with the onions on his jacket and all that. Wearing the wig in Song Remains the Same. I mean, he's still got the same wife. He doesn't need us.
Next question, thanks.
Just a question for Jimmy. How's the songwriting going, and how ambitious are you for the future in terms of compositions?
Well, as I was saying earlier, when we got together, we started writing, and it was just, that was the idea, really, to see whether we could get on together after all that amount of time. 14 years is a long time to pass, and in actual fact, you know, we did a lot of writing right from the kick-off, and I don't know about, you know, writing, the whole process. People like to say, you know, what is the writing process? I guess it's just inspiration. And that's it, you know. I mean, today I'll write this, tomorrow I'll write something else, you know. And at the moment there's a joint partnership. That's rather interesting.
It's a lotus.
When will you record the new compositions that you've made?
When we get a day off.
Yeah.
That's about it, really. Well, we go home one day, and about 4 days after that, it'll be a good idea to start recording. But probably be the middle of December. It'll be good to see if Paul can play, you know, extend it electrically, because right now Paul Thompson from The Cure has only been playing acoustically. But you know, that kind of personality of guitar playing that he's got, you know, could be really, really great against Jimmy's arpeggio work. It stands to be electrically something quite dumbfounding.
So you will have an album full of new songs?
Yeah.
Cool.
Absolutely. Well, we've nearly done it now.
Ms. McCabe?
Hello.
When you were saying about how quickly the songs started coming, did that surprise you at all? Were you actually sort of pinching yourselves that the caliber and the quality of the material that you're coming up with so incredibly quickly?
I don't know whether it's that good, but I think the most important thing about it was that our channels were open. I think although I think with Misty we can create mood and stuff which pleases us, and that's really what's the most important thing. It always was, and it should always remain that way. And that's what Paul's argument was about when he left The Cure. Was that once upon a time they did it there, you know, they always had their own mood and their own creation. If you listen to some of the stuff on Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me, it's absolutely brilliant. But then they started becoming weenie, weenie, bop, bop. And then it was almost better to play to 70,000 people and be weenie bop.
Call the album No Chorus.
Yeah, yeah. No Chorus, what a great name for a project.
Gentleman in the back on the right here. Yeah.
Greg Burns from Radio 2UE. I'd like to know, with 4 new songs and 10 reworked songs, is the new album aimed at more the older audience, your old fans, or say new fans? And what's the chance of seeing you guys play live, like the new songs? Like, is there any chance of coming back?
Sure. I mean, that's the whole, you know, that's what it's all about, really, is playing it and people hearing it, what we're doing, and sure, we'll be back.
The old songs are not the old songs anymore. I mean, they aren't the old songs because they're so different. When that guy when Hossam Ramzi starts the rhythm percussion in Kashmir, that ain't the old song. And when the man stands up and plays for his God and his country with the violin, that's not an old song. That's a whole new and different ball game. You could actually take those segments out and put them somewhere else, and they're totally different and totally new, and very inspired, I think. And will the old fans like it? I doubt it. They're already ODing on Chris Rea. I'm sorry, Chris. My manager, if he was here now, would be scowling, saying, "Don't knock anybody." But I've had my Valium, so I'm all right.
Back row on your right, gentlemen.
With Led Zeppelin being the most bootleg band ever, something about 300 titles available, and you guys built your reputation on pretty live performances, why hasn't it been to this stage, like official live recordings and videos?
Well, the song remains the same for a start. Actually, if you've only got 250, I've just been to Japan and I've got more than that. The whole trunk full.
He didn't pay for them either.
No, absolutely not, no. Actually, I think there's about 1,000 out there. I'm not kidding.
Have you got any mind releasing some live material? Like, you've just released what you've done. It's one of the questions I've read in most of your interviews, you've probably been posted a million times, but there's been a lack of others, and someone remains the same. I remember Jimmy saying in an interview that he wanted to relay some information that he was a member of the band, or stop on it, or something like that.
No, I'm going to make a compilation of bootlegs, actually. Put it out officially.
Well, I think it's live is live, and when live's finished being live, it's gone. You know. I mean, I can't stand listening to what happened. You know, I remember. No, I don't. I remember. Okay, I do. When John Anderson and all that, they used to play in Yes, and they used to go back to the hotel room, rig the Revox up, get some brown rice, and sit there for another 3 hours listening to what they just played. I mean, what the fuck's the point of that? I mean, it ain't that good ever. Anyway, you've got to be there, feel it, and then go and do something else. Live is, well, is it self-indulgent, Jim?
No, it's not self-indulgent,
Okay.
Robert. Pointless self-indulgence.
Well, pointless self-indulgence, it's not.
We're living in an age where too much Zeppelin is barely enough.
Well, it's very sweet of you to say that. I've got some dodgy tracks you can buy off me in the foyer.
This gentleman down here in the front on your right, guys.
You haven't got any tour dates set for Australia?
Rex?
Yes, you do, absolutely.
When?
When?
Later in the year, October, November.
But that's now.
No, that's next year. Later next year.
See? We know what we're doing. It's a multi-million-dollar management organisation. Later next year.
Will you be taking the same musicians that you had with the No Quarter film that we saw last night? Will we see those on the tour with you, or most of those? Or obviously you enjoy the experience of working with them. Will we have the chance to see them as well? Or?
Well, we sincerely hope so. That's the idea. You're supposed to turn up on the first rehearsal with them, and it was even a struggle getting 3 of them in there.
I know 2 of them have got shorts.
Yeah. No.
No,
It's a scintillating question.
Yeah, there we go.
You mentioned the influence of traveling on your music. Any plans to sing some music?
There's a bit more to it than that, isn't it? There's a bit more to it than that. It would be a wonderful experience, especially this time of the year. But the answer is right now, no. There isn't any time. I was only 32 when I went on this promotional tour.
I just think that Jimmy's guitar work with a didgeridoo in the background would be perfect.
We had 2 didgeridoo, didn't we?
Yeah. When we were sort of doing the initial run-throughs of numbers and things, I brought in a couple of didgeridoo players, but one of them was an old friend of mine. We had 2 didgeridoo players playing on Friends initially. But that's the way that things went. We changed things around. At the end of the day, it turned out the way that you've heard it. But, we were up for experimenting in many different areas.
Gentleman with his hand up in the front here.
Just on the album you just recorded, it sounds like you put a hell of a lot of effort and into reworking the songs real.
There are certain areas that it's, when you're making a record, and most importantly, the film, because the film is when you see that, you get the plot. If you don't see it, maybe you miss, you miss a bit. But
Yeah, it's pretty self-evident that something like Bomb Last Stomp is going to work with the Egyptians.
it depends who's pressing my button.
Is that a hint?
It's so cheesy. Hey,
Is that a hint?
Not unless you speak Urdu, no. But I'm sure you can have a crash course. No, it doesn't matter. You do what you do, and you want to be. I didn't think I could sing high stuff, but I can. But it's if you're playing with people who don't inspire it. It's also you've got to be incredibly careful with that whole idea of the high note being some kind of currency that makes you more of a man. Because if you buy any heavy metal magazine and you see all these blokes looking a bit weird with latex trousers, they're doing it all the time. And they've got to get undressed sometime or another to play golf. So I think the whole, as long as we make sense, then this is it. And if we didn't make sense, I don't think I'd want to make a solo album again anyway. I'd like to do duets.
With Elton. This lady here.
You've got such a focus on Egyptian and Indian music in this album. Is that sort of a blueprint for the future, or are you planning to move in different directions?
Sorry, a blueprint for what?
The future.
Of the future?
Future albums that you might do together.
Well, as far as the blueprint, I mean, there was a certain aspect of a blueprint in the past, if you want to put it that way. The fact of playing with you know other you know personalities and musically, so to speak, can be an inspiration, and you take it in an organic sense, the same way that we got here at this point. You know, you're working with the Egyptians, the Moroccans, and you know the Celtic areas of Nigel Eaton, for instance, on the hurdy-gurdy. I mean, you can be inspired by working with these people, and that's basically what it is. If you're in a room and you get to, you know, there's like a particular sort of identity of sound coming from somebody, and you can get inspired by it, and who knows what comes next. But up to this point, it's been pretty good.
We always dealt with drones when we made music. A lot of the time we were using drones of one kind or another, either big guitar-layered drones or or keyboard and I think the hurdy-gurdy as an instrument allows you to have this kind of pad of sonic mystery. This kind of mysterious, you know, sound that goes along, which means that you can sing anything from a Beatles song to, you know, when we played Friends, they came up and said, look, we've got a way of starting it. And it was the drone. And it was amazing. And the drone's so moving. And every time you get out of the Anglo-Saxon world, the drone's there. And that's all you need.
Kathy McCabe in the centre on your left, guys, is there?
You've been speaking a lot about music making sense. That seems to be the word that keeps coming up. Are you excited about this music?
The music, this music now?
Yeah.
No, it's fucking awful. What time did you get up?
Too early.
I know how you feel. Yes, of course it's exciting. It's because...
I mean, you're sounding very logical about it. It had to make sense.
Well, it had to make sense because it would have been an absolute waste of time. I don't think either of us want to waste our time. I mean, if a miss is as good as a mile if you don't get it right. You know, there's a lot of cohesions. There's a lot of people who get together from different cultures and religious backgrounds and ethnic backgrounds who try and make music together, and it's marketed in a certain way, and it doesn't work because it's too polite or it's not real. The thing is that these guys were giving us as much as we were giving them. They were contributing quite vividly to what we were doing, and the excitement was for Jimmy and I to stand there dumbfounded because we had the kernel of an idea, but they took it and they went, okay, now we'll show you what we do, because we are the supreme players of the Middle East, because all music in the Middle East comes from Cairo. And every time I mentioned Morocco, which is my second home, they were going, there, nothing, Walou, Nothing at all. We carry the music of the Middle East. Everybody comes to us. Fairuz from Lebanon, she uses Egyptian players. You know, she plays in Sydney a lot. I saw her last time I was here. And everybody, the whole musical centre of the Middle East gravitates from Cairo and from the Kulthum school of music, if you like. So it's so exciting because we're like a pair of amateurs, really, with a little bit of money. A lot of freedom. Well, yeah, you can make mistakes. It doesn't matter, does it? As long as somebody else is paying for it.
On your right, here goes.
We've been talking about Australian music. Is it possible?
You ought to do this one, really.
Well, there's Led Zeppelin tributes and tributes. There's,
We're a tribute.
what you mean, like that Stairway to Heaven stuff and all that? I thought that was hilarious, actually. Yeah, it's
Hairway to
great.
Stephen.
That's right. I haven't, you know, I'm not absolutely au fait with all the bands you're talking about, but I'm aware of that. I thought it was a lot of fun.
I like the Big Fat Elvis version. Yeah, no, the one from that, the program, yeah, you know the one that the guy does it to the tune of Viva Las Vegas? Man, that was cool. And also my mum cried when the big choir sang Stairway to Heaven. You know, but then again, she had a couple of sherries.
Why didn't you redo it on this album?
How old are you, son? Haven't you heard the legend? Anybody who says that word more than twice a day gets sent to Canberra.
Besides, photographers aren't allowed to ask questions.
Yeah, don't get too relaxed.
Lady in the front row, on your left, guys.
I wasn't there. Do you feel? Are you responsible for any conceptions?
Next.
Yeah. They were never immaculate, anyway.
Front row.
I like. I don't know. When I go through the motions of conception, well, I fake it, you know, but I used to like Massive Attack. I thought that did the job.
Front row.
What's the worst thing about being famous? You can say about people bothering you, is it the original or the good thing?
Famous for 15 minutes, 5 minutes. What do you mean by being famous? What do you mean? Is there any like pressure relative to that? Is that what you mean? No, there's not.
Oh, it is. It's bloody hopeless. No, what it is you have to have it 3 times a day. It's like medicine. You have to be adored. You know, and if you're not adored, then you have to go off and say, love me, love me. Ah, it's true. I mean, I don't know why you say that, because it's absolutely true. You know, people make pitiful gestures just to keep the adoration counter going, you know? I'm not going to mention who, but they do. And you're only a photographer. Only.
Front row, on your right, guys.
Yeah, you recorded When the Levee Breaks. Why wasn't it on the album?
Forgot the words.
And also on the American version of the CD, there's Wah-Wah's been left off of it. Why is that? Australia's got one extra track from America on the CD.
Well, this is our first romance with Phonogram. There's all sorts of cock-ups everywhere. I mean, you know.
Good song.
Wah-Wah's great, yeah. Thank you. I love it. I don't know. You know, Fate of Nations was with Phonogram, and there are moves that are made in London which in the end move right across the world. Decisions that are made after a heavy lunch, corporate lunch. I don't know. Things happen that, you know, and then you can't actually send a copy of Wah-Wah on a cassette in the post to everybody. Yeah, it was left off.
Yeah, there's no logic behind it.
It might be the difference between the cost of records in Europe and the cost of records in America. I mean, it could be some corporate ploy. I think we should have
Is that the
an
logic
ombudsman.
behind it?
I don't know. We should have an ombudsman looking into this. Hey, oi, oi, hey, 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 keep up. Come on.
You going to release when Levy breaks later today?
I don't know. It wasn't that great, actually. Nobody's fault but mine worked better than that, of the two.
Go with your hand up there, on your left, guys.
The baby as well.
Ah, yeah.
What is some of the newer bands around now that you guys are into? I mean, you know, a lot of stuff today that inspired you guys didn't actually play.
I didn't hear the question.
He said,
Yeah.
what new bands do you like?
I think Beck is good. I mean, the new one, not the Jeff one. The Jeff one is good too, but I'm talking about, you're talking about new bands. You know, I think the material on his album is really, really imaginative. Soundgarden, you know. That'll do for the moment, won't it?
I like Portishead. I think, has that come out here yet?
Yeah?
Yeah. I think she sings great. And I think, I like Blind Melon. I think the kid who sings in Blind Melon takes a lot from Grace Slick, Strange Teeth. I love the Black Crows because they're great. They're real magpies, but they're really good. I think if anything, they're one of the few bands that actually doesn't give a flying hoot and just has a great time. And they don't go out to make records that are going to fit perfectly in the, you know, following John Bon Jovi around. That sort of thing. I want to like Rollins, but he won't let me.
The big Led Zeppelin fan, back row, right hand.
Question to Jimmy and to Robert himself in the second part, but in the Yardbirds, the first part of the Zeppelin, you had that great Paisley painted Telecaster. What did you have to do with that? And the second part of the question is, what was your favourite tour of Zeppelin? What period? Most people have a like 73 or 75. What was the period of
Well, I'll tell you about the guitar. It was actually, it was self-painted at the time. It was sort of like flames and things. And I went away on tour, and it was, you know, like about 1971, something like that. And a friend of mine thought he'd redesign it while I was away and repainted it. So it's sort of, yeah, that's right. So it's sitting around with like a totally new sort of modulating pattern on it. But I've still got it anyway. No, it's not the brown one, no. Well, the ones where I didn't have like injured fingers for a start. Yeah, yeah, no, but I enjoyed all of that, just as much as I still enjoy what I'm doing now. But you know, they're all good. You know, I always put everything I had into what I was doing then. Same, at least you know, I still got that much motivation now too.
Tell them how you messed your finger up.
Well, twice actually over 2 tours.
Remember in San Diego Airport?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Climbing fences.
Yeah, but I wasn't going up the same fence. As to which tour... Which tour was the best? I don't know, I can't remember them, but I do know I looked quite happy in about 1973. When all them T-shirts, you know, so you had that... So do you. Yeah. It's amazing what you can do, you know, with a good night's sleep.
What about the Earl's Court? There's no celluloid of that, but that was a particularly big concert. I think it sold out about 5 gigs there.
There was a lot of energy at that time. We just came back from Morocco, didn't we? We were pretty... We'd experienced quite a few extremes just prior to going on stage for the whole of that year. So it was more exciting than...
Actually, we went to Morocco after that.
Did we really?
Yeah.
Good Lord. Then why was I like that then?
I don't know.
It was a lot of energy, a lot of happiness then. I don't know whether it was that great playing-wise, because you can't be that happy and play good, can you really?
Who are you directing that? Personal favourite? Who's personal favourite?
Oh, personal favourite is an album. I remember Jimmy reading an interview with yourself. You said that you'd done so many overdubs in a short amount of time, and that it was.
Well, it was done in 3 weeks.
And considering the other album.
But then again, so was In Through the Outdoor. First album was done in 36 hours, so I mean, it's all a matter of time and a race against time, really, isn't it?
Takes that long now to get in a limo.
That's right.
By the
Anybody?
time Zeppelin finished, nobody had gone down to the lobby because they were always waiting for the next bloke to go down because they knew he wouldn't go down to the lobby. So in the end, it could take hours to even get out of the hotel. Once we left New York, 2 hours after the crowd were ready for us to go on stage in Philadelphia, and we were still in the lobby in New York.
I didn't make it to the lobby.
No, you passed go and went straight to jail.
Absolutely.
Anybody else that hasn't asked any questions? It feels the burning desire? Okay then.
In the morning press, you guys are referred to as, I think it was rock and roll dinosaurs. I mean, does that make it a bit disheartening, or
No.
do you feel like your age is shining as opposed to the music?
Well, you know, you journalists, you're not short of the odd cliche, are you? You know, I mean, I don't know whether are you a journalist?
No, I am.
Yeah.
I tried.
Yeah, you look quite young for it, really. But I mean, I think, you know, journalism is, there's nothing, not all these cliches are what they are. We're old blokes, you know. I don't think we're dinosaurs because, you know, we can procreate. Our line hasn't finished yet, you know. But we're definitely not real and certainly not normal. It's not disheartening, though. It's rather nice.
Okay, we've got 1 more minute to go, and gentleman on the right here,
We've
guys.
got to do 7,000 TV shows now.
Over here on the right,
We're not
guys.
neurotic about it failing, this project at all, you know. Okay, let's have somebody who hasn't said a word. The gentleman with the beard. The best. I think it's great, yeah.
Recording all those years ago, you would have been recording on 4 tracks.
What track was? I don't know that number.
How's it compared now? Like we're recording now as it was then. How much more can you put on a record than what you could do then? Has it made your creativity better or any worse?
Well, it's still imagination, isn't it? That's what comes down to at the end of the day.
You have more scope to put more, obviously more scope to put more things on a record on the road. Does that take away or add to your ability to put them on there? At the end of the day, is it more creative or less creative?
I think the more options that you have, the more you explore and the longer it takes, and you tend to lose what was the kernel of a really good or original organic idea. I think a lot of the
as
stuff...
long as you don't do that, though.
That's right. And I think a lot of the... If you listen to some of the more really creative times in music, especially like toward the end of the 60s, what was happening in San Francisco and in London and stuff like that, and the kind of time, the process of writing with the Aeroplane, Grateful Dead, and all that whole movement, which is a social movement too. If it took you more than 2 days to make an album, there was something radically wrong. You know, Pick Withers, an old friend of mine from Dire Straits, who left Dire Straits and didn't team up with... he said it took 2 weeks in New York to get a snare drum sound for Dire Straits because they were going through all the samples. You know, and in the end, nobody knows. I'd much rather listen to Gene Vincent anyway. So I think the more choices you've got and the more options, you become so studio au fait with everything. It becomes... First started working again together there were 2 of us in a room with 5 drum loops which were concocted in Paris by a producer, and there was a guitar amp and a microphone, and we just pressed a button and recorded the stuff. And what we got, warts and all, was the most amazing sound. And when I play it at home, it sounds like if you did anything technical to it now, it would diminish its power. So technology has a lot to answer for, really.
Obviously, the spontaneity of those first albums was recorded, you said 36 hours, is again, say 3 or 4 months in the studio.
Well, whatever it is, main part of it is you don't want to lose the initial spark of what is there within the number. And it's like Rob was saying about, you know, Pick Withers and his, you know, trying to find a snare drum sound. By the time he's got the snare drum sound, you've lost the spark, you know.
Yeah, I think...
And that's all important, that you don't lose that.
And we were conceptually a four-piece band when we started, and how much more can you do than have four pieces, really? You know, as time went on and we got more opportunity, there was more guitar overdubs and stuff. But that was all you needed. I think the 80s, the beginning of the 80s, the techno era, when keyboards came to the fore and before MIDI interface, in the Howard Jones time, Nick Kershaw, and all that sort of post-new romantic thing, I think everything got, I think the actual soul of music was substituted for, you know, Human League. And I bought that Love Unlimited Orchestra thing.
Okay, last
Human
question.
League with no vocals. Figure that.
Before this last.
Who's your
But
mate?
yeah, you know, the Yardbirds just some really innovative, made some really innovative music and statements, and each of the guitarists that were involved did their own part, you know.
Thank you very much, everybody. Try and, you know, have a
Ladies and gentlemen, put your...
Phonogram Records, thanks for coming, and hopefully you'll all get lots of space for various publications and stations and television stations and things. Thank you.
Come on, mate. Come on, Sam. There you go. Playing legendary songs.
Fucking hell, it's bright, isn't it? Is it bright
Thanks,
when you're in, Robert?
Can I get a beer? Beer.
The best thing for jet lag is water.
I know.
So I want to be
Tough, because it gave me a headache after all that flying.
Excuse me, is anybody in charge here?
Hello, I'm Robert. Can you turn these down one bit? We kill those lights?
A little bit.
I've been elected to start the proceedings this
Well, I'm not
afternoon.
starting till the lights
Angela,
Well, hang on, before you do,
yeah,
we
it's
can't
lights.
see you.
Actually, I've got two lights.
So
right.
until we can see you, how do we know how to address you, sir? If you give... Is that going to change, or...
When?
When the mouse stops running around in the wheel.
Blinding.
Hello, 1, 2. Do you want to wear these?
Are they prescription?
I've got
Blues
one.
Brothers.
Yeah, I look like that.
It's still bright.
Alhamdulillah.
Now Robert's have disappeared completely in my half straight. I've still got two here.
Okay, can we have some quiet, please, because we've got a career to maintain.
Is it okay?
Thank you. So this is going to
Hang on, hang on. Is it okay?
They're 5 quid.
Yep, I'm ready.
Sounds better.
It's just, I'll be in the way of the cameras. Hi, Angela Bishop from Channel 10 News. Nice to meet you. You're at the end of your world tour. Has the reaction been what you expected so far?
I think it changes from country to country. Obviously, there are areas that we've both been to together in the past and individually since the breakup of Led Zeppelin, where, you know, like America and Europe and stuff, where there have been the kind of stock-in-trade reactions plus some more because of the kind of complexity of the lineup. It's quite surprising, or it has been quite surprising for the media, the fact that
so many people can travel together and play in time. I think that the most interesting reaction has been how in Latin countries in South America and Spain, Italy, southern France and stuff, where there's a language barrier, the fact that there's a lot of rhythmic aspects to the show with Hossam and the whole Middle Eastern entourage. It's given the whole thing a different character and structure to what people would normally expect of what basically would be the framework of a contemporary rock show. So it's been, as we've gone from place to place, it's changed quite a bit. But it's been very favourable, and the reactions have been really more than we could have hoped for, in a way. So have you found a new audience? Have you noticed a new audience coming along apart from Zeppelin fans? I mean, are people coming out? I wouldn't know the difference between a new one and an old one, really. Age? I don't quite understand what you mean. You mean, are they all really old in wheelchairs? No, I don't mean anything like that, but simply are there some people that simply couldn't have been around in the Zeppelin days?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Again, depending on the country, isn't that right, Jim?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. A lot of young people, especially in absolutely. Especially, again, everywhere. Yeah, it's been quite cross-sectional, really. We haven't actually been playing to the audience that would have probably been the same age as us.
No, a lot of young people have come along, but it is a large cross-section. It's almost 7 to 70 in some places.
Yeah. 7 to 70, not 70-70.
Ian Verrinder from the Sydney Morning Herald. Over the years, your music has, in terms of music fashion, you were incredibly fashionable and very popular in the early 70s, but for some reason or other, your style seemed to go out of fashion, and now once again you find yourself incredibly popular again. I mean, how do you explain that, given that I suspect you'd say that you haven't changed or altered your musical attitudes over the years? How do you cope with the changes in fashion to what you actually do?
Well, I think we always changed the musical attitudes with every record that we made, so therefore it gave us a bit of a hike to have some continuity over a period of time, because we didn't play the same music for 9 albums. We were constantly experimenting, and Jimmy and I travelled through India and Morocco, and Jimmy spent time in Egypt, and those reflections came out in the music. So I guess we were fortunate because our travels really influenced the way that we wrote, and that gave us some kind of longevity because of the depth of the changes. So when you say that we haven't changed, I think that we're always changing, and even the 4 songs that were done on this current project on location in Morocco, and I think even they indicate that we're changing again. The metamorphosis is certainly not finished, and I think people who listen to music and who are interested in music as a sort of a point of reference rather than something that plays in an elevator or is playing when you have drinks with your yuppie pals or one's yuppie pals, take interest in what we're doing.
I guess I was asking more from the vagaries of taste from the people who buy and listen to music. I mean, in the late 70s, for instance, the punk scene came along and you suddenly found yourselves a little bit out on a limb, as though for some reason or other you...
Well, I don't think we did at all. For a start, we never... You used the word fashion. I don't think that's one thing we never were. We weren't trying to, you know, we didn't have to comply to fashion at all in any way whatsoever, shape or form. And I don't think we do now.
Also, I mean, when the Damned were really popular, Jimmy and I used to go and watch them a lot because they possessed some of that really root power and energy that we took from 50s rockabilly and so on. And it was like the Rat Scabies, the drummer from the Damned, used to come and hang out with me and approach Jimmy to play with him. John Lydon contacted me to get the lyrics to Kashmir. The whole thing, it didn't take long. I mean, it's very easy for a whole new movement of music to reject everything that came before. But if you look into what developed out of punk, and certainly what happened in the sort of American rock from then on, I think one way or another we were responsible for some of the good and bad aspects of what happened over the following 10 years, including the sampling and especially Jimmy's riffs and the stuff that kept reappearing and reappearing. And now apparently that when Seattle took a hold of the consciousness of the youth consciousness in America, we were supposed to have become obsolete again. But there's far too much of that stylization still present in that music even, really.
So do you think it's been your ability to adapt and to change and your various interests in?
I just think we just roll along. I mean, it's not a case of looking over our shoulders too much. You know, there's no need to, really. You do what you do, and it isn't a competition with anybody else at all, really. It's just a competition with your own ambition, artistically, I guess.
Okay, thanks very much.
Can I ask one other question? Two questions. One, have you had a chance to look at other songs that aren't on No Quarter and treat them the same way that the current musicians feel? And secondly, have you had much of a chance to be writing on the road, or has it been pretty much like this work yourself?
I'll answer the second question. Rob, we can go for the first one.
I can't remember the first one.
That's what happened to me. You'll have to excuse us. We're really tired from just arriving from Japan. So
We just got off the plane from
it's not lack of
Toyland.
enthusiasm, believe me. No, at the moment we've been areas within the set where we can improvise, and we've been coming out with some astonishing stuff each night. You know, different. It'll be a different plot each night, and from there's quite a possibility that we could actually have some ideas there that we could turn into new songs and new material. In fact, as far as writing on the road, as in the way that you probably think, you know, maybe it's sound checks or whatever, we really haven't had the time, to be honest with you. But it's better, in fact, having this sort of vehicle that we have, and the imagination that we have collectively, to be able to improvise, and you know, that's really what it's all about, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and the answer to the first part of the question is pardon. Not pardon, no. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, we have done. Thank you. Hassan's troupe have modified some other songs. And there are only a certain amount of songs that really lend themselves to a sort of arabesque treatment. It's very difficult to do Black Dog with you know, that sort of treatment, but it has the whole idea of the troupe combining all together has, you know, it's opened up quite a lot.
Yeah, as far as yeah, there was some reference to other numbers that we looked at other numbers, right? Well, the thing is, we've got such a massive set list since we could play for almost like I don't know, 6 hours or something with the amount of numbers that we've got and we've incorporated into the set.
How long is the set? How long, on average?
2 hours. Mm. I mean, we have to say that, I mean, we've been in Japan for a while, and we've been sound checking a lot and routining songs that we didn't touch for the first 100 shows. So, I mean, that's quite an encourageable sign. It means that we're certainly not, you know, we're not toured out or anything like that. We're well, it doesn't really matter. I mean, any ones we feel like. Sometimes using the traditional Western-style orchestra, and sometimes Hossam and the guys have helped us out on other songs. So it's, I mean, it's a whole parade, really, of options that we've got, far beyond what was on the TV and on that CD. That CD seems so long ago now, and Jimmy and I were talking the other day, and Hossam would agree that it was such a tentative time, because we had one run through and then we started filming it, the studio stuff. So we were really flying on the seat of our pants a lot, weren't we?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know, I mean, it's, and it was very tentative. I think it was quite scary, because we knew if we didn't get it right, well, we wouldn't have got it right, you know. But But now we've expanded it, and it's much more relaxed, and it has quite a few moments where it gets really dramatic and climatic. So, I mean, from that period, from that time when that No Quarter came out to now is a long, long time ago.
Well, me? Was that to me? Oh, well, I didn't tour 20 years ago, and as soon as the tour finished, I will go home.
Thank God he said something.
Hi, Ben from Red TV. I was just, Jimmy and Robert, wondering, I've read that you guys aren't really into the idea of Rock and Roll Hall of Fames and things like those sort of award nights and stuff like that. Why is that?
Well, would you like to give away a blouse that you wore 20 years ago to have put on a dummy somewhere in Cleveland, Ohio?
But you still appeared at some of those anyway, despite the fact that you're not really supportive of the whole idea.
Well, I like trinkets.
We got invited to go around the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I was quite amused to see one of my stage suits on it, which I'd lent to the Victoria and Albert Museum in London, which they actually confiscated at the end of the day. And they put that in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And I was quite amused to see that I'd now shrunk to 5'4" instead of 6 foot, which I thought was quite funny.
It's because the display cabinet was only 5'6". I mean, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I mean, I guess really we're all, well, they're musicians and I'm a singer, and I think we really love the history of where our music came from, and especially because we lent so much on the blues from, you know, from Mississippi Delta or Chicago, or rockabilly from Memphis or wherever it was. So the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame historically has something to offer us, but when you talk about our position in it and contributing stuff to it, and people wandering by with their big liter things of Diet Coke, staring at our stage gear, I don't think that's relevant at all. But the film that you can see of the early days of Beale Street or in Memphis or wherever it is fascinating. But I mean, there's enough time gone and elapsed that actually is historically valid, I think. Also, you can hear so many Led Zeppelin songs on those old films.
I'd like to ask Hossam a question. Hossam?
Hi, where are you?
I'm over here.
Howdy.
Over here.
The lights. Oh, now I can
Nice show.
I'd like to ask you, do you think this project will help popularize Arabic music in the long run?
Yeah, I think it has already. I mean, we have been seen on stage by at least 1 million people up to date. And these people would have had no idea or had no inclination to even attempt to listen to our music. And it was up to people like Jimmy and Robert to bring us forward. And it's not a new thing for them, because you can see it in their music and in their influences from a long time ago. This is one of the reasons I was madly in love with Led Zeppelin music since I was, you know, starting to play. And yes, it is already influencing. I mean, I can only go by my record sales. People are more interested from the statistical viewpoint. Of course, I donate all my money to charity.
Hossam, another
Yes.
one. Jaslyn Hall, Triple J. Here I am.
Where are you?
Here. I'm black. Here.
Oh, right.
Here.
Ah, bless you.
You're black and beautiful. Carry on.
Thank you.
Oh, what a schmoozer.
Yeah, I know.
You've played with, you know, just about everybody, jazz, pop.
Yeah.
Now you're playing with the rock gods.
Steady on.
Can
Didn't think you black people knew about rock gods.
I don't. Can you recall what your thoughts were when you got the phone call from, what are those two people called?
The people that rang me were Ed Sheeran and Mr. Rex King. I thought somebody was taking the piss. And I couldn't believe it myself, but I went down for a rehearsal one day, and it was true. And there's no better time to confess I was actually shaking at the knees, because
So were we.
people that I have admired for a long time that here they are in the same room as I am, and I'm supposed to be trying to do something with them. Of course, they just wanted somebody to make coffee and tea to start with. But then I said, look, I can play drums and make music as well.
And just secondly, the music, you've obviously chosen sort of Arabic music. Could it work with flamenco or any other style? Why did you particularly choose Egyptian rhythms?
I didn't choose Egyptian rhythms only. I chose rhythms from Morocco, and I chose rhythms from Lebanon, and from all over the Middle East, from Saudi Arabia, and from the Arabian Gulf. And in answer to your other question, yes, it does work with Morocco, with flamenco. I've done a lot of shows that incorporated Indian flamenco as well as Egyptian. And I toured with a guy that used to be here in Australia. His name is Antonio Vargas, from the film Strictly Ballroom. And we did a show with Egyptian music and flamenco music and dancing.
Hello, Rachel Kerr here from Triple J. I'm not black, but I'm a friend of Jazz Hall's. I'm wondering, are any of you ever considering getting a haircut?
Well, Hossam's
Yes.
only just bought his.
As soon as I get paid.
The real question is about Britpop. At the moment, it's a real reinvention of 60s and 70s, the Small Faces, the Beatles, whatever, with Blur, Oasis, etc. Is anyone imitating you, or is anyone likely to imitate you, or is that impossible?
We are. That's a very interesting question. I mean, how the hell do I know? I still stand in front of a mirror and go, ooh yeah, because I know that one day I'll get it right, but I don't know who's doing what really. I mean, I know what contemporary stuff's going down, and I know that Oasis have finally broken it in America. And a sage that I know, a wise man who spends most of his time in the pre-Sahara, told me that now that Oasis have made it in America, that there's going to be a whole onslaught of English music hitting the American radio waves again. Somehow I can't believe that's true, because most English music is so narcissistic and shallow, and a reflection of our sorry society. I can't see it happening at all, but amen.
So you like it then?
Oh, fantastic, yeah.
In the past, some time back, it's me again, down the back here, you didn't have a particularly close and warm relationship with the media. I'm wondering how it is today, what you think of us. Right.
Well, you've got a job to do, haven't you? You get paid, you know, so you can be as controversial as you like. I mean, the number of misquotes and amazing stories that have circulated about Jimmy and I over the years have been fantastic in the real sense of the word, and they've been developed by your good selves. I think in some ways, despite our loathing of you, you've done us a big favour.
Sort of take that as a compliment, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't read the Japanese stuff much, very easily.
I think it's a universal thing.
Yeah. You might all go to the ashram at Hossam's house and talk about your problems.
Yeah.
Hazel Palmer from Hawkesbury Radio. Yardbirds are out here at the moment as well. I'm just wearing black. Are you going to get together with those at all just for a night session or anything like that?
The Yardbirds are over here at the moment, you say?
Yes, they are.
Oh, great. Well, I'd love to see them. If somebody could let me know where they are, I'd love to meet up with Jim and Chris.
Right. They're
Yeah,
with the
yeah.
animals at the moment, so to speak. Out at Panthers Penrith on Sunday night.
Great.
We'll be in Brisbane.
No, we won't. We won't be in Brisbane on Sunday. We'll be here. I think.
Okay.
What are you expecting from Australian audiences after such a long time between gigs?
I haven't got a slightest idea. I mean, we just go and play, and if there's somebody there, that's great. If there's not, we just play. I hope it's a communion of emotion and passion and exuberance. I hope it's just a communion, because that's how it works best. I suppose when Jimmy and I actually got together, we were not a stock in trade part of the English music scene because we were leaning so heavily on American music anyway. I think the reflections of some of the contemporary popsters and the kind of the games that they play can only be, you see, without going on about it too much, the music, the whole idea of fashion, youth, and the pop culture it's more or less like a teen. The whole of the English scene can be like a teen magazine, you know. So heroes are made overnight, and you know, once you make them, you knock them down. They can. I think a lot of really good artists have fallen foul of that process. But then again, that's not particularly unique to England.
Craig Dick AAP down here. This one's more towards Jimmy. I saw Led Zeppelin in Frankfurt in 1980, 1981, and it was a great concert. Very rowdy, it was very noisy, and Jimmy Page was doing a guitar solo, and halfway through he asked the audience to try and keep the noise down a bit. It was a bit hard to concentrate. And then he continued on, and it was fantastic. But the question is, do you get that sort of thing happening these days? I know the whole thing's changed a lot, but do you get that sort of thing with the crowd being so noisy that it's very hard to concentrate? And do you remember that time? I do.
No, I don't remember that. I don't remember very much of that 1982 actually at all. But however, you know, actually, as a rule, for instance, say in the States, yeah, I might as well just relate to the States here as far as the audiences go, because we've done a lot of touring there over the last year. It's been very, very enthusiastic, and but very attentive as well. To take the enthusiasm even further, then you have to start relating to South America, where they just going wild, but still listening. I'm sorry, playing with a huge orchestra. Well, obviously, with especially when we're employing what we call, say, the more traditional orchestra as such.
Employing?
Oh. Employing it within the music.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
We're going to have to pay them.
There are charts written for them, so they in fact, it's like a pad behind us, you know. But we still have the ability to improvise. But when we're playing as like the 4-piece or the 5-piece, you know, when we've got Ed as well, you know, we can stretch out more. So it gives us many different, you know, roads really within the set, you know. I mean, for instance, you guys
Steve
are
Dalton,
improvising. Once, you know, when the areas where, you know, the Hossam and the lads are playing, you know, they're improvising a lot.
Yeah, the show, from my point of view, while we're performing, it's very, very exciting and very, very precise. And when we get it right, it really, really gels, and it really rocks, and you have 4 percussionists and Michael Lee on drums, and we all lock together to what, let's say, Jimmy and Charlie on bass are doing, to Robert's singing, and then you have the 20-piece string orchestra. And I have experienced almost every night some incredible magical moments where like the whole thing just sparkles and like you know it is happening, you know. I mean, like it's just like we're not playing from just like the music anymore. We're just like doing something as if it was never ever done before.
Well, I think we've both been attached to to those music forms for longer than we've actually known each other, Jimmy and I. Been aware of it. Where I lived in England, I was surrounded by Asians all the time. So always that music was coming on the one side of me, whereas, you know, rock and roll was another side. So I don't really think the Indian aspects of the rhythms and the seduction of rhythm were quite as important to me as the North African ones. But we've both been so aware of it and been aware of work that's come out of those countries for a long time. And I guess being in those countries influenced the way that we wrote. I mean, the songs that lent themselves to that in Led Zeppelin 3 and 4 began with Jimmy's guitar playing and began with tunings, guitar tunings and so on, which were inspired and taken from that part of the world.
Yeah.
No.
Who?
Steve Hillage.
No.
No.
But at the time that we went to Bombay, it was an experiment to see how things would work, and we'd had an idea that it would be a good idea, going back to '72, to actually come here actually via places like Cairo and Bombay, and do concerts there and record at the same time, you know. But it's just something, as you know, we didn't come back after whatever it was. '72 is the last time we were here, isn't it? Yeah, right. So we did, you know, it just didn't come into fruition, but the idea was sound.
Oh, absolutely, by anybody. It doesn't matter. Yeah. No.
What is it?
Who is it? Johnny? No, sounds like an inspiring name. Does he make a good job of it? Is it funny? Is it... Yeah? Yeah, okay, thanks.
Well, listen, if we're reinterpreting them, I don't see why anyone else shouldn't.
The song, yeah, there's an album called The Song Retains the Name. With groups like the Earwigs doing Down by the Seaside, and it's kind of semi-spoof because I think it's the same. There's about 6 different artists. I think it's all the same people, but it's great because it's great to hear how other people would do it. You know, how extreme, because the whole beauty of youth music is that if it's not playing safe, it will go to extremes, and that's really where the truth lies. Oh, I see. Yeah, there's a lot of that going on in England. A lot of rave stuff and dance stuff. Whole Lot of Love was number 3 in England not long ago by one outfit, and Babe, I'm Going to Leave You was doing pretty well. If only they knew who was behind it all. Well, I never really had a problem with it, but they weren't really sampling me. But I don't know. In retrospect, I suppose after a while it gets a bit tedious, and you want to get, you feel a little bit of revenge bubbling somewhere. But it's the actual taking of riffs. I think there was a track by Michael Jackson called Bad, which was so close to the Heartbreaker riff. And we left it for ages and ages and never even bothered about it. And then you realize that the people are taking the piss a little bit, because it's... But then again, we're not completely devoid of the odd thievery ourselves. And neither shall we be in the future.
you.